Okay, so we're looking at extinction procedures today. What is extinction? Extinction is a procedure where previously reinforced behaviors or responses are no longer reinforced. So the concept is very simple. A behavior that in the past received reinforcement, whether that's escape behavior, gaining access to something, sensory behavior, we are now no longer reinforcing that behavior. For example, in the past, if a child came up and in order to gain access to a cookie, they would hit their mom, and in response to being hit, the mom gave them the cookie. If we were putting that in extinction, now when the child hits the parent, they no longer get the cookie. Reinforcement is stopped. Okay, so extinction is typically used in conjunction with other interventions and should be used with other interventions because remember, with extinction, we're reducing a behavior, we're taking away a behavior, and whenever you reduce or take away a behavior that serves a function, that serves a purpose, we need to add something else. Okay, so an important part of extinction is also teaching replacement behaviors. Okay, so extinction is part of a treatment package. It's not just the only intervention we use. Extinction is one of the three principles of ABA. Our three principles are reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Okay, so that's how we change behavior. Reinforcement increases, punishment and extinction decrease. Extinction, of course, is used to decrease behavior. Okay, so question. Which of the following best represents extinction? So we're looking for the scenario which best represents an extinction procedure. A, Bill completes his homework, but is not rewarded for it. So kind of tricky because it looks good, right? Because in your mind, you might think, well, he completes his homework, but doesn't get any reward. Remember, what is important when we're talking about behavior change and reinforcement, extinction, punishment? The important thing is how does it impact the behavior, right? And for extinction, do we know that Bill was reinforced in the past? Do we know he was rewarded in the past? Do we know that his behavior's changing because of any of this reward? No, we don't know Bill's past. We don't know if this is something he's gotten before. Okay, we just know this time he completed his homework, he didn't get reward. Okay, so it's not a great example of extinction because there's not a lot of information. B, in the past, Jillian would gain access to her iPad by hitting mom. Now, mom does not give access to the iPad when Jillian hits her. So, does it fit our list? Do we know that Jillian gained access or was reinforced in the past? Yes, right? Every time before, when Jillian hits mom, she gets access to her iPad. So we know the behavior has been reinforced in the past because she continues to hit mom. Now, when she hits mom, she doesn't get the iPad. So what did mom stop? Well, she stopped giving reinforcement, which is extinction, right? A previously reinforced behavior no longer produces reinforcement. So B is good. It has all their information, okay? And it describes extinction perfectly. So B looks pretty good. Remember, what do we want to do? We always want to read all our answer choices. So C, Timmy threw all of his food on the ground, so mom took away his video games. Again, we're not sure if this is reinforcement or if it's punishment or if it's extinction because we don't know what's happening to the behavior, right? So all we know is the consequence was Timmy had his video games taken away, but we don't know what if the behavior changed, right? And that's really what's important when we're talking about the three principles of ABA. Is the behavior changing or is it not? And then D, when Johnny is not screaming, his RBT gives him attention and praise. Okay, this could describe what type of procedure. Well, to me, it looks like a DRO, right? Because behavior is being given attention and praise in the absence of happening, but it's not extinction. Okay, so the answer is B, because mom now withholds reinforcement for a previously reinforced behavior. So remember your checklist when we're thinking about behavior questions, okay? Reinforcement, punishment, extinction, okay? Is something being added or taken away? Okay, is it positive or negative? Is the behavior changing? Is it increasing or decreasing? Okay, and then for extinction, was the behavior reinforced in the past and has it stopped being reinforced in the future? All right. Okay, so continuing, what is extinction not? Extinction is not punishment, okay? Yes, extinction is used to decrease a behavior, but we're not punishing the behavior. We're just not giving reinforcement. Okay. Remember, punishment, we're adding a stimulus, we're taking away a stimulus. Okay. Because it's negative or positive. With extinction, we're just not giving reinforcement. Okay. There's a difference there, right? And if conceptually you don't understand that, that's okay. When you get into actual practice, it's going to make a lot of sense. Just understand that extinction is not punishment. Okay, that's what you need to understand. And then extinction is not always ignoring. There are certain types of extinction where ignoring is how we implement. Okay, but a big mistake is people think extinction is just ignoring. Extinction depends on what previous reinforcement was given. It could be attention, which would be ignoring, but it could also be tangibles. It could be escape. It could be automatic. So extinction is not simply ignoring the client. Okay, and that's very important, right? Because if I'm putting behavior on extinction, I don't want you just ignoring the client. Okay, I want you withholding the reinforcement that was previously given. So question, extinction is the most effective with which of the following reinforcement schedules? All right, so we have different reinforcement schedules and we know extinction is when we withhold reinforcement. So think about A, okay, FR2. FR2 is what? Fixed ratio 2. So every 2 responses, that behavior is reinforced. So think about extinction, okay? We have to wait 2 responses to implement extinction. Why is that? Because reinforcement is only delivered every 2 responses, so we can only withhold reinforcement, okay, every 2 responses, right? Because that's the schedule, okay? So that's going to be harder to implement extinction, okay, because it's more intermittent, right? It's a longer time between reinforcement. If I have like an FR20, right? Now we're looking at 20 responses, okay, before the client typically gets reinforcement. Okay, so we have to sit there and put behavior on extinction, okay, and only when it hits 20 is it really the schedule, and then it restarts, okay? So the longer or the more intermittent or the thinner the schedule, okay, the harder it is to put on extinction, okay? So FR2 is hard, okay? VR1, right? Our VRs is the strongest type of basic reinforcement schedule, so it's going to be the most difficult to put on extinction. FI1, okay, we have to go a minute in between reinforcement, right? So that behavior can happen a million times, but only every minute. So the most of extinction is most effective on an FR1 or a continuous schedule, okay? So again, the longer or the more intermittent, okay, or the thinner the reinforcement schedule, the more difficult it is to put the behavior on extinction. All right, 3 types of extinction. We have positive reinforcement extinction, automatic reinforcement extinction, and negative reinforcement extinction. Positive reinforcement extinction, okay, we're denying attention or tangible because typically the behavior in the past gained attention or gained a tangible. So now we're denying that attention or tangible for extinction. Automatic reinforcement, we're blocking or removing, okay, the automatic or sensory reinforcement or consequence. And then negative reinforcement, we're blocking escape or avoidance because in the past, the behavior gained access to escape or avoidance. So now we have to deny or block that. And that's extinction, right? Denying or blocking or removing previous reinforcement for a behavior. Okay, so those are our 3 types. Notice that not every one involves ignoring. Okay, attention would be ignoring, but tangible would just be denying access. So you can still give attention to the client, okay, if the function is tangible. And that's a tricky concept, but it's important, right? The behavior relies on the function, right? If my function is escape or avoidance, then it doesn't matter about the attention, okay? People always want to revert back to ignoring, right? But that's not really what we're doing here, okay? We need to look at how is the behavior reinforcing, or how is the behavior producing reinforcement? Okay, what's the function? And then we have to cut that function off. All right. After a functional behavior assessment, your BCBA determines that the maintaining function of your client's behavior is getting out of doing their work. Which of the following would best describe extinction for this behavior? Okay, so in extinction questions, you first need to think about what is reinforcing the behavior. What is maintaining that behavior, okay? So in this scenario, the maintaining function is client getting out of work. So in your mind, you should be thinking escape or avoidance, okay? So look at A. When a task demand is presented, withhold tokens until the task is finished. All right, so the first part looks good, right? Okay, we're looking at a task demand, but what are we doing? We're withholding an item or a tangible, okay? Our function is getting out of doing their work, right? So A is not great. B, when working with the client, avoid giving unwarranted attention to the client's behavior. Is the maintaining function attention? Is attention reinforcing? No, okay? It's getting out of doing their work. So B does not describe extinction. C, if a task demand is presented, the task demand must be presented until it is completed despite the client's behavior. Yes, what are you doing? You're preventing avoidance of the task, you're preventing escape, because when your client attempts to escape or avoid the task, you continue to you continue to deliver the task demand until it's completed. And that's the entire idea, right? Previously, they got to escape or avoid. Now you're not letting them escape or avoid, and therefore you're blocking reinforcement. So C is good. Let's read D. When the client engages in escape, blocks a sensory consequence. That is an automatic function. Our function, right, is getting out of doing their work. It's not a sensory thing. It's just simply avoiding work. Okay, so C is the best answer. Again, with extinction, you need to understand what previously reinforced the behavior, okay, and how can you deny that reinforcement now. Okay, side effects of extinction. So there are some ethical side effect concerns with extinction. However, most or a couple are predictable, okay, and it's stuff we can plan for. So the most obvious one is an extinction burst, okay, and that's when behavior increases at the start of extinction. When extinction is first implemented, our behavior increases, okay, and then it gets to a point, right, where we call it the burst, and that's the height of the behavior, and then after that extinction burst, the behavior goes down, okay. So if we looked at a graph, all right, this would be our behavior, okay, this would be extinction, so that behavior is going to go up, right, and then right here, right, is our extinction burst, okay, and then the behavior is going to go back down. So an extinction burst is predictable, okay, we can plan for it, right? It's just difficult sometimes to work through, okay, because behavior gets worse, it gets more intense, and people wonder, I thought this was supposed to be decreasing the behavior, why is it getting worse, okay? So we have to plan for that, we have to make everyone aware. Extinction could also cause aggression. So if aggression occurs as a result of extinction, it's important we do not reinforce that aggression, okay? So again, we have to plan for this, we have to be aware of it, right? We should always be ready for these situations. Spontaneous recovery is behavior that was reduced during extinction. It reoccurs. This is common, and it freaks people out because we'll put a behavior on extinction, we'll reduce it, and then 2 months later, it'll show up again, and everyone will freak out and be like, "Oh my God, we had eliminated this behavior or reduced it, and now it's back." Totally normal. All you need to do is continue the procedure that originally put that behavior on extinction and originally reduced it. Again, plan for it, expect it. And then resistance to extinction, a long history of reinforcement or intermittent schedules of reinforcement prevents or makes extinction harder. So this is what we talked about with our reinforcement schedules, okay? The longer or the more intermittent schedule, the harder it is to put on extinction and the more resistance you might get from your client, okay? So these are side effects, these are ethical concerns, these are things that need to be discussed with the client or the caregiver, the RBTs, anybody on the team everybody on the team needs to be aware of these side effects, okay? Both for ethical concerns, right, and behavioral concerns. Because when you implement extinction, it needs to be done 100% of the time, okay? Extinction can't occur sporadically. If you're going to do extinction, it needs to be consistent. It needs to occur every time. The question, which of the following is an ethical concern of extinction? A, extinction burst, B, extinction-induced aggression, C, extinction on dangerous behaviors, or D, all of the above. Well, we know extinction bursts are, right? We know extinction-induced aggression are. Extinction on dangerous behaviors, so think about self-injurious behaviors or behaviors where the client is putting others in danger. If the function is attention or the function is gaining access, that might be difficult to withhold reinforcement, right? Because they're dangerous, okay? So it's ethically, we need to consider, okay, the consequences of putting a behavior on extinction. The answer here is D, all of the above. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. As always, like and subscribe. Questions, email me, leave a comment. I'm happy to help. Keep studying hard, right? Your hard work will pay off, I promise, okay? Many people have passed, okay? And you will be the next one. Just keep working hard. If you need our practice materials, check out our website or one of these links, which I'll put in the comments and descriptions below. I'll be back this weekend and then next week as usual. So keep studying hard and I will see you soon.